Hello and welcome back, everyone. We are still live here at Awwwards in Amsterdam, and surprise, surprise, it's not Rufus here, it's me with Raisa. You're an UX specialist at Google in the Netherlands.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I gave my talk yesterday, so it's all relaxed now, and I'm able to enjoy all the talks that are continuing today. It's been a really great variety of topics to be inspired by, and it's a lot of fun.
What was your talk about?
My talk was about high mobile internet speeds and the misconception that companies can ignore the fact that they need to speed up their websites because they think that 4G speeds being what they think maybe is more prominent, that their users are all on modern fast connections, but this is not the case even when the average internet speeds are seemingly high or maybe higher than other country averages. So I wanted to highlight some insights on why it's important to speed up and what factors can also contribute to a user's perception of speed. So they might perceive a site to be slower than it is if they're anxious or on the go. And I wanted to highlight the importance of this.
Very interesting and very technical as well.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
yeah.
Coming from my background as a front-end developer, I really wanted to make a technical topic interesting to designers and design thinkers that are here today. And in my role as a UX specialist, I'm also promoting this message across C-levels of an organization, typically CTOs or CMOs.
That's great. So tell us a little bit more about your background. So you said you're a front-end developer.
Yeah.
How did you get into this industry? At what point did you get in the industry? For how long have you been?
Yeah, I'll try to go through quickly.
Yeah.
But when I started, I gave this also introduction in my talk a little bit, that I guess my introduction to design in a way came from my childhood hobby of drawing comics, and when I finally learned how to digitize my comics on Adobe Illustrator. At the time it was Adobe Illustrator CS2, and that was a lot of fun to learn. But I wanted to build a platform to share my comics with the world, and I built a website called Eggs and Eagles. I actually have it here because I...
Say has changed the most between your first and your second one? Now.
Well, definitely now. Like, if you look at my website, well, I was kind of working on this for the last... Well, I built this in one day, and then I was kind of... It's been stashed away in my local storage. But what's changed now, definitely, I mean, I'm using a lot fewer images, more CSS, so I was experimenting with these different styles to go diagonal. I showcased some of the work that I did at Google Brand Studio while I was there, and then just like some random interests and contributions to the community. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to just experiment with this, but I've kind of procrastinated because when I'm coding all day in my job, then if I come home, I want to kind of detach and work on something else. But yeah, one day I will launch this.
But it looks great. I mean, compared to the other websites, we can see a clear path that you...
Yeah, those were in like 2006 and 2007 that I built the last ones. And I was just kind of making a fun platform to showcase my comics.
That's amazing. And that's all done in HTML and CSS?
Yeah.
Nothing
and
else?
I used material design components as the kind of frameworks for this, inspired by one of my last projects at Google, which was just a basic informational site at g.co/protect your election. It was just an informational site.
If you guys want to go online.
Protect. Oh, am I online? Protect.
And if you have any questions for Raisa, let me know in the chat. I'm going to read them out. Now we've got it.
Yeah, so this was just a really basic site, but me and my team, because it was so basic, we wanted to make it as performant as possible and really push the limits. So, I mean, when you scroll down, it's just a lot of text, but it's really cleanly laid out. And we used material design components because it was lightweight, and we were able to strip out the different parts that we need so it wouldn't weigh down the page. And I just kind of took inspiration from the tools that we used to build this really fast site and took it into what I wanted to build in my portfolio, which one day I will launch. So, yeah, this was one of the projects that I built in my last year at Brand Studio while I was working as a developer on the London team.
That looks
great. Now I'm here happily in Amsterdam.
Yeah, so you moved from London to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
What do you say is the biggest difference in the industry between London and Amsterdam?
In the industry itself, I mean, first differences I think of right away are just like in the environment. Like I feel a lot more at peace here. I think it's a lot of kind of hustle and bustle and stress in London just because of the feeling of everybody moving around. And I think that also makes it quite competitive in the industry, like especially in the agency world. In Amsterdam, like it seems like quite a small and well-known, like the design community. Everybody kind of knows each other and is a nice supportive community. So I really like that about the community here, and also I feel the same kind of feeling here at the Awwwards conference.
So you feel it's more kind of a city for communities and networking. It seems like instead of London.
In my experience so far, and I've been surprised with the amount of UX and design meetups that I've been able to at least be exposed to and attend some of them. So that's been great for learning. Great.
Yeah. Have you lived anywhere else apart from London?
Yeah, I'm originally from San Francisco, so I was born and raised there, one of the few locals in that beautiful and thriving city.
So how is it different there? I mean, that's where it all stems from, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people, especially within Google, like a lot of people aspire to move to the headquarters over there in the Silicon Valley, and of course a lot of other great tech jobs are there, but for me, having grown up there, I think maybe I was craving some change along the way. And
so you lost attraction because you have been there for too long.
I kind of also came spontaneously when I was offered a position to transfer within my own team to our newly building London department. And I never thought about moving abroad before that, but once I heard about this opportunity, it kind of crept into my mind like inception, and then I decided that this would be a really great opportunity to build my professional skills. Like even within web development, I learned so much about internationalization and building for different markets, and it was really a great experience.
But you did work as well in San Francisco?
Oh yeah, I did. So I started.
You have experience in all of the countries.
I started at the headquarters at Google in Mountain View. So I was there for a year and a half before I transferred to London, and worked for a small startup before that as a UI UX designer. So kind of hopped around back and forth from design and development over the course of my time. But I think in this new role as a UX specialist, it kind of brings all of my experiences together, from design to development and UX, and also now adding in this kind of business-facing layer where I can also practice my influencing skills, talk to C-levels, and really make an impact.
Awesome. And can you see a difference in design aesthetic or future trends between the US, San Francisco, and London and Amsterdam?
It's hard to say, with a lot of great websites and agencies like building internationally. Yeah. And something I find fascinating is just the technicalities and all the details involved in localizing a website. In terms of trends, I haven't paid too much attention to the trends, honestly, but I think it's just...
You can set them.
That's true. We learned that yesterday, so maybe that's what I have to do here in Amsterdam, set the new trends.
Why not? We have some questions in the chat here from Kaisa. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Hello from Lisbon. I want to know what she thinks about UX UI designers, the famous unicorn designs.
I wouldn't say that that's a unicorn role. Like one of the talks today, I think from Build in Amsterdam, talked about how UI and UX should be integrated and people should have the skills to do both. And as a UI designer, you should also consider how the interaction should be. So I would say that's like, just keep doing what you're doing, and like if you're designing for the user, just consider all the elements necessary to build a great experience.
Do you work very close with designers?
At the moment, maybe more closely now with developers, although there are times that we work with designers to improve the user experience of landing pages. So we will make recommendations based on best practices and what is a more efficient way to display information to users, especially with retail sites and sites where it's really important to boost conversions.
Is there a specific process that you follow, a recipe that you can give to our users, that a success recipe?
Well, yesterday I, in my talk focused on speed as an element of user experience, I gave a few design challenges based on some 3 categories to focus on in terms of speed. So with speed perception, we want to we have a small area of the mobile screen that we want to prioritize. So of course we have an opportunity, but also a challenge to figure out what's the most important information to load there, prioritize it to load first, and then lazy load the rest. And that's quite a common technique and pretty well known amongst designers and developers, but often it's really easy to overlook that and just download all the resources that can clutter a user's, or can overload a user's download.
Interesting. We have another question from Galina. Have you ever designed for a complex system? How would you show results when searching in a tree structure? And if this is not possible, how would you find your data fast?
I'm trying to think of when I've done that. I haven't done really complex design systems since university days, honestly. Like in my role as a front-end developer within Google, I've been mostly building marketing pages, and those were like really like clean and very simple informational type of sites, or like maybe small type of experiences with simple navigation. But I can quickly show you something about a more complicated. Well, I don't know if it relates to tree structure, so I won't go there actually. But I would say in this kind of complex structure, it would be important to like map it out first on paper, because sometimes you have to get it out of your head and make sure it makes sense and be able to communicate with other people. So like drawing some kind of trees that are understandable for
Post-its
other
help.
people. Yeah, post-its. Those are a big topic of the past couple of days. So definitely. Just find some way to communicate it on paper before you build it out and make it some really complex thing.
Awesome. We have Dominic asking, what do you see as the future of UI UX, especially now with the move for augmented reality?
Augmented reality is a really interesting topic, and in my talk yesterday, I also mentioned that around this time last year, I presented at a developer conference about this topic, and it is really fascinating to see what kind of trends are evolving from here and what kind of challenges we can solve. I think it will first break out. I mean, it still has yet to break out into the mainstream, although we see some really cool brand examples using augmented reality. But we are definitely going to think of how the user interacts with the world from a small device like their phone or something that, I think when it does break out into reality, into mainstream, it will be on the phone first, of course. So think about like spatial awareness, and I saw some great talks about augmented reality and how it relates to people with disabilities. So like somebody, or even kind of minorities, like someone who's shorter and playing a shooting game maybe has a height advantage or disadvantage if they're a certain height. So it's important to think of accessibility considerations, and just making sure you're designing for something good instead of all of the. There's so much out there that you want to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Definitely. Have you tried out some augmented reality products yourself already?
I started to build. I was really fascinated with augmented reality for the web, and that's why I started to present about the topic. So I just went into GitHub and pulled in I think it was the Google AR, like their experimental standards for augmented reality for Chrome. So I was experimenting with that to see what's possible on the web in the future, and I just kind of built some random shape prototypes and was throwing shapes onto surfaces in my office to see how it works, adding some little gradients on cones and things, like kind of simple things. But
also some mustaches and some colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like having drawn cartoons for a long time, I'm used to the 2D space, and this was also kind of my way to play around with 3D.
That's cool.
But I started to realize as I was building these prototypes, my phone was heating up, and I realized that there's a lot of limitations still that are preventing it from coming to mainstream, especially if you're adapting for so many different phone models, like even within like Android or iPhone, there's so many different models of each version and so many hardware specs to cater to. So in addition to those complications, like there's also that a lot of hardware is not yet ready for this if we feel our phones are heating up.
So basically the hardware suppliers have to improve or
in a way, yeah, but maybe
further.
There's also some room for improvement in the software that's built to
make it
to
lighter.
Support it. Yeah, maybe.
So it's a both-way communication kind of thing.
Yeah.
We have one more question from Ashok. What approach do you use for user testing?
I haven't done user testing in a long time. Like, I mean, from like me personally, I was doing a lot of user testing when I was a UX designer at the startup that I worked for before Google, and we invited users to come in and basically created these scenarios to walk them through. So I worked for a company called Liftopia, and you could buy lift tickets online. So basically, we walked them through a different scenario to first land on the partner's website, click through and try to find a product that we want them to look for, and then just talk through their experience. So of course that is one like clear way to get their experience and take some notes on maybe what challenges they're facing or what's working and what's not, and then we would. Yeah. Other than that, like there's a lot of great ways to do user testing, like kind of virtually with some different software, but I think this kind of weighs down the page, so I wouldn't recommend it. So I would always advise to test with real users where you can observe them, although I can understand this is challenging.
Definitely. And what would you say, how long do your projects take in average, and at what point in time would you recommend for a UX project to do user testing? More towards the end, in the middle, at the beginning, somewhere in between?
I think at all stages it can be really relevant. Like when I was doing user testing before, it was in the prototypes phase. So, I mean, we would also even use paper prototypes to test with users, and then sometimes like digital prototypes, and then finally on the real site, it's also possible to test it in the early releases. So you still have time to change it.
What advantage would you say has a digital prototype compared to a paper prototype?
It just gives you more of the feeling that it's real. Of course, as fancy as you can make the shapes and cardboard cutouts, I think like the user kind of still feels like it's a simulation. And when you have the real product, even when you're live, it can make a big difference of how the user experiences it.
So would you still recommend paper prototyping with the nowadays available tools?
I think it depends on the case. Like paper prototyping, maybe for like a brand new concept that you want to test, but maybe it takes a long time to put the resources together. I mean, I guess nowadays with the tools that we have, digital prototypes are pretty easy to put together, but in times where you need to be scrappy or maybe your company has a low budget, you have to do what you can.
Definitely. We have one more question. Amanda is asking, what was the biggest challenge for you during your career?
Biggest challenge? I think having always been kind of in between design and development, I've maybe struggled a little bit of identity crisis. But I've also heard a kind of recurring theme throughout this conference that there are like developer designers or dev designers. I forgot who said that yesterday, but it was a nice, funny reference to, or something that a lot of people can relate to, because I mean, I started drawing, but then I brought it to life with code, and then I kind of bounced back and forth between the two. But I no longer see it as a disadvantage. Like in my new role right now, I've taken all of my experiences to what I'm doing now, and I think it's exciting to continue learning new things and just kind of see where my career takes me. Maybe I'll get back into coding more, but maybe if I realize now that I don't miss it, then I also enjoy what I'm doing right now.
But isn't it very helpful to have these two backgrounds? Because I have a design background, and I can just talk for myself. I also had to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and not that I was good at it, but it has helped me so much in my career to work very close with developers, and I can just imagine that for you with an advanced knowledge of this field, it's even easier for you to communicate with them, because you know what technically is possible, and you can communicate better with them.
Yeah, it's definitely
helpful. Or even you could do the whole end-to-end process.
I could, and in theory, and I have, and you've seen how that kind of failed in my comic days. And I think it's just that like you feel kind of a need to specialize at some point, and like maybe, of course, it's great to know both design and code, or design and code, and be able to communicate it. But like I've always felt like I wanted to be really good at one thing, and I didn't know which one to choose. But now I think I learned a lot throughout the years, and I just use it where I can and continue to learn in the areas that interest me at the moment. So
that's great. Yeah. We have a question from Angelique. I want to become better in UX design and understand creating experience better. Do you have tips for this?
Creating experience better. It's quite a broad question, but I mean, I would say to seek inspiration and like even just in these past 2 days, I've been really inspired with all the talks that have come up, and even inspired to go back into like digging into more creative projects.
Are there
Creating
any
experience better. I would
Are there maybe any specific websites or books that you can recommend to read,
Yeah.
or events to go to, talks to go to?
Yeah, an event apart, and a book apart, like that kind of series, is a really great wealth of information, and the book design covers are all really nice and and fun to read through. And Smashing Magazine has a lot of great tips and blog posts to continue learning. There's so many great resources out there. It's hard to choose, like, to nail it, and in terms of just creating better experiences, like there's so many directions that can go. And the Google design blog is also really great. Design.google, I think, is the URL, but
You can Google it.
There's a wealth of information, and you can Google it.
Do you have any tip? We're about to get to time. Do you have any tip for our community for their future design career? What encourages them? Which path they should go?
Yeah, I mean, speaking from my challenges of not, or kind of feeling insecure being in between development and design, like I would say, like, not to let that worry you too much, and just like do what you enjoy. And that's kind of where that has taken me, because I enjoy design, I enjoy development, and I enjoy bringing the two together and creating great experiences.
That's
so
awesome.
Just do what you love.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have come up about time, so it was really great having you here.
Yeah.
You had your talk yesterday already,
Yeah.
so unfortunately we can't announce this. Not sure, is there a replay? That we
I hope that they will publish the YouTube videos soon, because
Okay.
I know previously
Awesome.
in previous events they do that, so I will
Awesome.
be excited to see that.
Check out Raisa on YouTube with her talk at Awwwards yesterday, 14th of February. And yeah, coming up next is Rufus with Marie, very interesting talk. She's a deaf interaction designer, so stay tuned, and thanks for all your questions, and see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks.